Teenager therapy, because we have problems too.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Teenage Therapy. I'm Gael, and today we have a really special guest. James, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm James. You might have seen me on TikTok, but yes, I'm excited to be here today and talk to you guys.
James, yeah, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk to you about this. For all the listeners, this is part of a campaign we're doing, which is called Swiping Safely. And what it is we're focusing on the exploitation of LGBTQ plus youth in online communities and how we could help facilitate safer communities. So what that means is basically trying to warn teenagers about the dangers of being on apps like Tinder and Bumble and Grindr as a minor, and the consequences that could come from that. Um, so James, what do you recently came out, right?
I did. I think it was in December of 2020, so a couple months ago. I was in Hawaii and just figured it was time, and I wanted to come out to my huge or like my following. Just I don't know if it was like a surprise to a lot of people, so I kind of saw it as like an opportunity to like be a wake up call for people, I guess you could say,
Hmm.
and just show that like it's like I want to break certain stereotypes and just show that like anyone can not be straight and you don't have to look a certain way.
Right. Do you think you look straight and people like very much thought you were 100% straight? Is that why?
No, yeah, I've gotten that before, but I mean, I don't like to like looking. I mean, I don't try to look a certain way,
Mm,
but like I have gotten like people are like, I didn't expect that at all. I'm like, yeah, it's just annoying how people like automatically assume that like straight is the default personality or sexuality.
right. No, for sure. That is a big problem. And also, like, what does it even mean to look gay? Like, right?
Exactly.
There's a definitely, I think when you really look into it, the comments are like, damn, I didn't expect that from you. It's like, well, why not? Like, did I not act
Yeah.
a way that you expected a gay person to act? And did you come out as gay or bisexual or pansexual?
Yeah, I came out as bisexual.
Bisexual. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm interested to know how you came to find yourself and how when you realized that you were bisexual.
So I mean, for a pretty long time, I've known that I wasn't straight. But like growing up, I feel like elementary school, I only like, which obviously is like I couldn't control anything, but I was only had crushes on girls. So I mean, it wasn't like hard to really, or it wasn't like a hard experience to like, I don't know. But anyways, like middle school, I like puberty time. That was when I was kind of having a rough time with like, having to fit in and stuff. And so I feel like middle school was definitely the point where I was like, okay, I am a certain way. I was just starting to accept it. And then finally, I feel like in high school, after all the social media stuff kind of like really kicked in, that's when I really truly accepted myself and then came out.
Mm.
It was like a long experience.
Yeah. What happened in middle school? Why was that like a sort of a starting point for everything?
So I feel like middle school is kind of a hard time for everyone because you're going
Right.
through puberty, you have a lot of hormones in your body. But I went to a Christian middle school. It was a private school, so we did learn a lot. I mean, obviously, it was such a good experience, and I did learn a lot. But there are some things that you learn that are like, going against your own self. Like
Right.
it's just a lot of things that just like kind of make you rethink reality, and it's just like you're middle schooler and you're like, why is the world treating you like this? And it's just a rough time, but you kind of I learned to accept it and live with it and make
Hmm.
the best out of everything.
Did you ever have like conflicting feelings about yourself because you were in like a Christian, school? Did that play a part in how you felt and how long it took to finally like fully accept yourself?
Um, so I mean, I'm not really religious now, but at the time, I definitely was like religious. And myself, I mean, obviously, in the Bible it says like homosexuality is a sin, but I truly believe that like a good Christians believe that like they love everyone. And in all honesty, I don't think it's even a sin. So I mean, personally, I didn't really have
Mhm.
like conflicting views. It was just like the fact that like the world were treated, you know, the LGBTQ community in like certain countries like unfairly,
Yeah.
and it was just kind of like a cherry on top to like see that like, oh no, some of these Christians say that they're Christian but they're homophobic. But mhm.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and something we talked about a lot is about being bisexual and internalized homophobia, and how that kind of has an interesting way it affects bisexual people. Um, because I mean, if you're gay and you have internalized homophobia, most people just like turn to hatred and stuff, and like they get really angry at themselves. But I think when you're bisexual, it's so easy to just just say I'm not going to date like any boys or any men. I'll just stick to girls because that's what's normal. Did you ever experience any of that? That like you knew you like both, but you purposely only seeked out women as a way to feel like everyone else.
Well, obviously, like, because growing up, I feel like everyone kind of experiences or is just like raised to have internalized homophobia because that's just like how our society is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there definitely were some points where I was like, oh, it's easier to date a girl right now rather than, holding hands with a guy in public. Because, I
Hmm.
mean, because I also grew up like an athlete and I did sports. So, I mean, I guess I did kind of see that like getting with a girl was easier. And that does kind of suck because I don't know, you can't control your feelings. But I mean, I've learned a lot, definitely, but it definitely was that internalized homophobia definitely affected me that way.
So you get to high school and you start really like figuring yourself out. Why didn't you come out sooner?
So I feel like I came out when the pandemic started and we weren't in school, so that was that. But also high school's kind of like a hard time for everyone, and I mean me personally, I like kind of knew I wasn't straight, but like I didn't really want to like accept it, or I didn't really want to
Okay.
like I didn't want to change people's like, or in my mind, I didn't want people to have a different opinion about me, which obviously is shouldn't even matter because the same person, but I was scared people weren't gonna like me anymore, you know?
Really? You thought they were gonna see you just as, I guess, less masculine or less like
Mhm.
stuff like that?
Yeah, and it's so weird because I did have those thoughts, but like when you think about it, it's such a weird like judgment scale. Like, why was I like prioritizing masculinity so much
Mhm.
to the point where I was like, I'm gonna like hide a part of myself. And masculinity and femininity are literally like they're so unimportant, but they are
Yeah.
important. But they're so unimportant. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point that I think a lot of people have trouble coming out, mostly just because they don't want to be perceived as less masculine, right? Especially when you grow up around like a group of, when you grow up, I guess, looking straight, and you're around with like a bunch of boys, and you're always, you're an athlete, you do all of these things. So coming out as gay gets a little bit harder because you feel like if you do come out, then everybody will start to be like, well, maybe you don't belong with us anymore, and then like it almost feels like coming out means you're gonna lose like a part of
Mhm.
yourself, a part of your masculinity, and there's a lot of pride in
Yeah.
that. I think there's a lot of fear with that, and you're right. It is very disappointing that we do, attach so much value to masculinity and femininity. Do you? I'm curious. When you hadn't come out, do you think you were able to? This might be like obvious, but do you feel like now that you've came out, you're able to just express yourself in any way, like no matter if it's like a, let's say you do something and it's a little bit more feminine, do you still have those doubts of, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this because it's a little too feminine, or are you sort of like doesn't really matter anymore?
I mean, I feel like it's been like internalized homophobia has been so ingrained in my mind that there's obviously going to be some points where I'm like, have that split judgment. I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't be playing this. Cause like, I
Yeah.
mean, for example, like songs or something, like if I'm obviously like songs aren't even feminine or masculine because I'm just fueling the stereotype. But like, yeah, there definitely are those points where I'm like, having those thoughts where like, oh no, is someone gonna like be suspicious about me or something like that? But it's honestly, but then I remember and I retell myself that like it's not important, and I just need to do what makes me happy and not because I mean, other people's opinions do matter, but they don't matter when it comes to like your health and your mental health.
Right. Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that a song even is enough to like make someone question
I know.
themselves to the point that like, no, maybe I shouldn't do this. Um, so what was it like after you came out? What were the reactions with your friends, family, and stuff like that?
In all honesty, it was like a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Really?
And I honestly think I like made more friends coming out of it than I did before. And I didn't lose any friends. I mean, even if I did, I guess I didn't even realize it. But that goes to show like who's important in your life. But I've had a great experience, and I honestly think I'm glad that I did it because I feel like I changed so many people's opinions about like just the LGBTQ community in general. And that's not saying that like every person that looks like me is like, I don't know, I don't whatever, but I'm just glad that I broke certain stereotypes because like I feel like that's definitely needed. And it's not needed, but it's definitely just like that's what it's going to take for people to like really change their mind about the community and
Yeah.
change opinions, you know?
No, I get what you're saying. I think that like I guess the fact that people saw you as very like straight and like, an athlete and very masculine and you ended up also being queer is important because that does break a certain stereotype of like, not every queer man is like very feminine and extravagant, all of these things. He can also
Exactly.
be very like low key and very um I guess toned down. So you said that you didn't like some people that were in your life then are in your life now. So there were some people that kind of distanced themselves from you a little bit.
Um, I mean, thinking like back at it, I honestly could not tell you a name. Um, but like I'm quite certain there probably were like people that like we just had a like wrong or like a iffy feeling about the whole thing, and I guess they just like haven't checked up on
Mm,
anything. But I honestly I haven't had any bad experiences, or
yeah,
I haven't thought of anyone specific. And when you say that question, so
yeah. You think the reason some people distance themselves is just they feel a little uncomfortable by it?
yes, totally. And honestly, like from my own experience, I know that like I wasn't homophobic, but I know that I was kind of scared around someone who was like very comfortable with themselves.
Mm,
So in all honesty, if I'm not assuming anything, but if you are that uncomfortable and that offended, then there might be a little
there
something
might be
going
something.
on.
Why does it get you so angry?
Yeah.
Interesting. And no, that's also nice that you like admit that you also kind of felt a little bit uncomfortable beforehand. Was that really just like I don't know, scared at how comfortable they were with themselves, and maybe a little bit of just envy at that?
Definitely. No, it's I mean, because I mean it takes a lot of courage for someone to really be comfortable with themselves. And that's what sucks about society because it shouldn't take that much courage, but it does. And so seeing someone that like I really wanted to be, but I was scared to be, definitely was like put me in a
Mm,
position of, jealousy.
yeah.
But
Yeah. So moving on from coming out and stuff, it's glad to hear you had a good experience.
thank you. Thank you.
The next thing that is basically like the main aspect of this campaign is like love and romance, right? And the fact that like there's a lot of young people that live in areas that maybe aren't as progressive as like LA and California. Because of that, they don't have access to like people who are accepting, and they don't have access to the support system that people like us do. Um, and there's just not enough people like them, and they're not able to experience things that their straight counterparts do, such as sexuality and exploring their romantic interests and having a crush and all of that. Have you had a chance to explore any of that? Have you had a chance to explore that new aspect of your sexuality?
So, interestingly, I came out in Hawaii in December. And then 2 days after I was still in Hawaii, I met this guy and we started dating. And, it was a good relationship. It was definitely a good learning experience. And I was glad that I had been in that relationship to learn a lot of stuff. But I don't know, it was just the odds that I got into a relationship 2 days after I came out. And it definitely put me into the world of relationships with guys, and it taught me a lot. And I was lucky
Mhm.
enough to like, experience that.
Was that your first time with having any sort of like, romantic experience with a guy?
Yes, it was my first time.
How did that feel?
It felt amazing, obviously. I feel like love in general and relationships are such a fun experience. And it definitely, I do agree with a statement that's, or with a phrase that people say, like, love is a drug, because it really is. Like, I know when I was in the relationship, I would like put all my energy into it, and it's addicting. It
Mm,
definitely is.
yeah.
But it definitely, I feel like love and relationships in general teaches so much about yourself as well. And so there's just so many benefits that come from it. And
Hmm.
yeah.
Was there still, even after you came out, was there still a part of you that felt uncomfortable or just odd being out in the open, with a boyfriend and stuff?
Oh, definitely. Like, I know, like, we obviously always had to watch out when we were holding hands in public. And, I mean, even though, like, I didn't want to, it was still, like, just a safety issue. And that's what sucks about,
Mhm.
society. But no, there definitely were those feelings. And then obviously, like, I see some TikTok sometimes where it's like, I can't believe my family has to see me kiss a boy at my wedding. And it's just like, I mean, obviously, people have those thoughts, but I think it takes more like exposure to, like, seeing people like us, or like me.
Yeah. No, I think it's about exposure. Um, I think for a lot of young people, it's still very much weird for their family to see that because I think people see gay people as very weird and different, and like the idea of something like a man kissing another man, like a masculine man kissing another masculine man, is weird. People, at the very least, the exposure that has been out there has been like very feminine men kissing one another, and that's what's accepted. But society as a whole is still very much uncomfortable, I think, with um, a masculine person being queer, and like that's why talking about like sex and stuff is still very taboo and very uncomfortable for a lot of people, and all of that. When you were younger or even just now, did you ever get like any sort of education into like the world of um being bisexual and sex and having sex with another man and all these things? Like, was that education something that you ever received?
So there definitely wasn't any education like that in school. But my uncle is gay, so my dad's brother. So we definitely, I knew, like, I was educated. My parents taught me everything they were accepting as well. So that was a benefit. But no, there's nothing in school about it, and I definitely think that there should be a push for that, because it's such a big percent of the population, and the fact that, like, there isn't any coverage in education or anything, it kind of fuels the, people to say homophobic, or to, keep people in the closet, which obviously is like not what they're trying to do. But
Yeah, that's interesting. And I guess, were you ever, when you did get a boyfriend and stuff, what were some of the things that you learned that were different? I mean, I assume you've been in a relationship with like a girl prior to that, right?
yes.
What were the main differences, and did it feel any different, or was it basically just the same thing?
So when I started dating this guy, he had not come out yet.
Hmm.
So that was definitely a different experience than being with a girl. It was a lot of, like, kind of seeing him become more comfortable with himself. And I think in that position, it's kind of like I should have, like, waited just a little bit, just because, like, I didn't want to, like, affect my mental health when it came, like, I don't know, I didn't want to deal with others people's problems. But it
Yeah.
definitely was a different experience, because I mean, obviously, a girl is not gonna. I mean, she can't come out, but a girl's not gonna go through the experience of, like, like, am I losing my masculinity? Just like
Mm,
weird stuff
yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like you were losing your masculinity?
Um, I've had experiences, yes, but I feel like I've actually had a pretty good luck with telling myself that, like, it's the concept of masculinity is so stupid. And I'm
Yeah.
also a pretty big man. Like, I'm 6'3". I'm like 210 pounds. So I'm like like by the looks of it, I'm a pretty scary man.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just so stupid how people place such, like, I don't know, so much emphasis on masculinity and stuff, when, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I can be as feminine as I want, but I can still, I don't know, beat
Yeah.
beat up a homophobe, even
Yeah.
though.
Exactly. Do you think the reason, well, this is okay, so a common issue with like queer um people in queer teens is that they kind of look to older people as their safe space, right? And when they're dating someone, a lot of these people go on like dating apps, and when they do that, they go on these apps and they're looking for older men because they find a sense of comfort in them. They find a sense of acceptance, someone that truly knows who they are and they're unapologetically themselves. Have you ever felt any sort of pull towards someone like that that is just much more experienced, very much true to themselves?
Me personally, I don't think I've ever like really like looked for an older man, but I totally understand why people are like interested in that because I mean that is such a big thing in like the queer community is that like the younger you are, you kind of seem you're not really like comfortable with yourself, like you said, and yeah, and like you said, it does like provide a place of comfortableness and safety, I guess. But me personally, I've never looked for an older guy because I don't know. I do know how dangerous it can be sometimes, and I do
Yeah.
know like certain apps that are just like very predatory, and it just I know that whole situation is pretty scary, but I
Hmm.
do understand why.
Yeah. Have you ever used any dating apps prior after coming out, like Tinder or Bumble or Grinder,
So,
to meet people?
I recently just turned 18, so it was like 2 months ago. But I
Oh,
did get a Tinder. That was I've tried it out for a little bit. I don't really I like obviously I'm not hating on dating apps,
yeah.
but I feel like it's so like it's a little bit overwhelming, honestly.
Mm.
It's fun. I'm not gonna lie, it definitely is fun. But I don't know, like trying to keep up with so many different like matches and stuff. I don't know.
I feel like the conversation is just too, it's like the same thing and it's
Yeah.
just too much at the same time, right?
Yes.
Like you could only handle so many like first get to know each other's, I guess.
Exactly. How are yous? What do you do?
How are you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What do you like doing, right? Like yeah, no, it's definitely a little superficial at times. But like you said, it is fun. It is like you get that rush of like everyone's like swiping on you, everyone's doing all this. So I see why people are attracted to it. The other thing is that a lot of people have a hard time being bisexual. I think a lot of people either wish they were fully straight or fully gay because being in the middle is a little bit odd. It's in like an awkward spot to be in. Like people often ask you, well, do you like guys more? Do you like girls more? Are you like 90% gay, 90%, 10% straight? W- The, is the fact that you're bi like harder on you? Do you wish you were just straight or gay, or are you fine just being
Yeah,
where you are?
completely. And I mean, there's so many people in my life that like, and I don't blame them because obviously it's an interesting subject. You know, I get the question all the time, like, who do you like more, or like, are you actually bi? And even like myself, like I conflict with myself. I'm like, wait, do I only like boys or like do I only like girls? And then there's moments where like, no, like I've like I can't like invalidate my feelings, you know. But it is like I feel like there is a lot of like confusion with bisexuality. And that's why I also don't like labels either because I feel like you should just feel what you want to feel instead of like,
Yeah,
you
just
know,
chase
I don't
after whatever.
yeah, but it's been a hard experience, but I feel like it's also been a good learning experience as well.
Mm. How are you coping with it? I mean, I guess, yeah, I think more than anything, the constant like invalidating of your feelings, and you question yourself a lot, probably.
Um so I do see how someone could, you know, get really offended by, you know, just like the delegitimization of bisexuality. But me personally, I like feel like if I'm like okay, like if I'm comfortable with myself and I'm having feelings for a certain person, then that shouldn't I shouldn't let someone else's opinion like really affect that at all. And so I mean, me personally, I'm doing pretty fine. It's definitely sucks for people to think that way, but it's not affecting me. I can like who I want to like, and that's
Yeah,
just mindset.
that's really good. Well, um, it's glad to hear that you had such a good experience. I think just the fact that you were able to come out so publicly, even after there was, I guess, this sort of pressure on you to like look a certain way and be a certain way, I think it's gonna help a lot of people. And it seems like you got a lot of great stuff going. You got into Stanford recently.
Yes,
Congrats
you.
on that.
Thank
That's
you so much.
exciting. Are you excited to meet everyone new there? I mean, that's a whole new environment, right?
No, I am. So it's going to be a good step away from like the LA social media
Mm,
world. And I've already met a couple, like a ton of people on social media. So that's what I'm excited about. And
yeah.
it's just like good to like start a new life, you know, really be yourself. And I don't know. I just, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's interesting. Cause yeah, I guess you will be away from like the LA scene and the social media world. Are you planning on maybe toning down your emphasis and your focus on social media while you're there?
Definitely, because I'm going to be studying a lot, and I'm also throwing like in track there, and so I'm gonna
Mhm.
definitely a lot of my schedule is going to be filled, but I'm gonna probably like I'm not gonna like go completely like ghost mode, but
Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna slow it down a little bit. Yeah,
that's exciting. No, yeah, it's a good change of pace. Do you think do you think there it's like a more because you said like it's kind of like a fresh start. Do you just mean like is there's like no expectations of you on what to be and stuff?
definitely. I mean, obviously, some people might know who I am, so that's gonna be a little bit. I mean, but I also think that I'm like comfortable with myself, so I'm not gonna like change or anything. But it definitely is a fresh. I mean, college in general is just a fresh start for everyone.
Yeah.
Not with your hometown friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a new start. You're meeting new people, and also I find college and college campuses to be more accepting usually than like suburban towns.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, that's kind of everything I had for you. Do you have anything else that I didn't ask you that you think is important to talk about?
I think I was gonna say that I'm definitely so lucky to have like the experience that I had coming out, but I do know that it is a very hard experience for a lot of people, and so and obviously that's not okay at all. But I just don't want people to always expect the best, but just be safe. And I know that it is a rough time for a lot of people, and I'm always here to talk, and I don't want you guys to have that. I want you to be happy and just be safe.
Yeah. Well, thank you, James, for talking about me. It was great.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course.